Today I am to start with the third session of function overloading chapter. In the previous class only I told you regarding the weightage of the chapter is 5 marks. Only one question they will ask in the annual exam, that is on part D, only one question, that is for 5 marks. On this chapter, main thing you have to study is, what do you mean by function overloading, definition, advantage, disadvantage, with that one program. In the same way, what do you mean by inline function, definition, advantage, disadvantage, as well as program. In the same way, one more concept is there on this chapter, that is friend function. On that friend function also definition, feature, syntax, as well as one program you have to know. Now, today I am to start with the concept friend function. Friend function. What do you mean by this friend function? What is the main advantage of this friend function? That today I am to explain you. Friend function. What do you mean by this? This friend function is a non-member function. The main point is it is a non-member function, but still it can able to access the private, protected as well as public data of a class. It can able to access rights, private as well as protected data. It is a non-member function. Whereas in the previous class I told you that only member functions can able to access the data, but here friend function can also able to access the private data. I am to explain this with some small example. For example, consider you have private things. For example, you have laptop. It is your private thing. A private thing na nimma friend nim manege bandu with your permission they can able to access. Is it no? That is nothing but friend function. Friend function is a non-member function. A friend anu nimma family ge sambandha pattavanalla. It is a non-member function, but still it can able to access your private data. That is nothing but friend function. Friend function is a non-member function. First thing, it is a non-member function, but still it can able to access your private data. It can able to access private, protected as well as public data of a class. It does not affected by any access specifier. It does not affected by access control key. Access control keys. Access control keys like private, protected as well as public. Private adru irbodu, protected adru irbodu athwa public adru irbodu. Yaude access specifier idru kuda it does not affect, and it does not going to use scope resolution operator to define this member function, especially this non-member function outside the class. We does not required, and directly it cannot able to access the data directly. If it wants to access any data, first it has to write object name, then dot data member it has to write. Then only it can able to access. Directly it cannot able to access all the data. If it is wants to access, then it has to use object name dot data member. Then only we can able to access. Next, here it violates the rule of encapsulation. Encapsulation as well as data hiding. Data hiding. These are the few features of function overloading. It is a non-member function, but still it can able to access all private as well as protected data of a class. With that, it does not affect by any access control keys. It does not affected by any access control keys. With that, to define this function outside the class, we does not require any scope resolution operator. If I want to define the member function outside the class, then we require scope resolution operator. Whereas in friend function, we does not require this scope resolution operator. And object name dot data members. If I want to access any data, first I have to write object name dot, then data members. Which data I want to access, that you have to write. And it violates the rule of encapsulation as well as data hiding. We are going to explain this with one syntax as well as one example program. While writing the syntax, compulsory we have to use the keyword friend. For example, I am going to declare this class name. Class name. Here in public, we are declaring this friend function. That is, first I have to use the keyword friend. While writing the syntax, first you have to use the keyword friend. Then after leaving one space, you have to write the return type specifier. Return type. Return type. Then leave one space and then write down function name. Function name. Then inside the bracket, once again you have to write the class name, then object. Then if you want to write the statement outside the class, just put semicolon, then close the class. This is the syntax to declare friend function. Friend is the keyword here we are using. Whereas for inline, what we are doing? Inline, then return type, then function name, inside the bracket arguments we are writing. Whereas for friend function, first you have to use the keyword friend, then return type, function name, then class name, just leave one space, then object. If you want, you can write the statement inside the class as well as outside the class also. If you want to write the statement outside the class, then here only you have to put semicolon. This is the syntax to declare friend function. This friend function we will explain with one example program. For example, I want to perform addition of two numbers. I want to perform, write a program to perform addition of two numbers using friend function. Then how to write the program for this one, that now I am going to explain. For example, I want to perform addition of two numbers. Then first what I will do, as usual, I am to start with the header file as include iostream.h. This is the supporting header file to perform cin as well as cout. Next, as include punyo.h header file. This is the supporting header file for clear screen as well as get.ch. Next, class. I want to perform addition of two numbers. Then I am going to take the class name as addition. Class name I am going to write it as addition. In this, in private section, we are declaring the variable int a comma b. These two are the variables. Now in public section, we are taking the functions void get data function. Inside the class only I am writing the statement, that's why I don't put any semicolon here. Then write down here cout insertion operator, enter two numbers. Then cin extraction operator A, extraction operator B. Two values we are input here. This is the get data function. It's a member function. This function belongs to addition class. Now I am to write the friend function. For friend function, already I told you we have to use the keyword friend. Return type. After calculation, the return type I want integer format. Int friend int. What is the function name here? I am to take it as compute. Compute is the function name. Inside the bracket, class name we are given as addition. Then object. Then semicolon, then close the class. To close the class, you have to put semicolon after flower bracket. In the beginning only I told you, For friend function, the syntax is start with the keyword friend. Then what is the next thing? Return type. Whereas for return type, we are given as integer format. Then next, function name. Whereas here, the function name we are given as compute. Then inside the bracket, class name, then object. This is the syntax we are written, is it? No, the same thing here we are written. First we have started with the keyword friend, the return type is integer, then function name is compute, then the class name here we are given as addition, then we are written object. Now, outside the class, now we will come back to the program, whereas in this program, addition is the class name, here this is get data is the member function, whereas friend function is compute. Now I am to write this compute function outside the class. While writing the statement outside the class, we does not require any scope resolution operator. That is one of the features of friend function. Whereas for other functions, how we are writing? Class name, then scope resolution operator, then function we are writing. Whereas for this one, we does not require any scope resolution operator at all. Directly we can write the function, that is int compute. Int compute, inside the bracket, the class name is addition, then object. Object. Now we are writing the statement of this function, that's why don't put any semicolon here. In this function, we are writing return. How to access the members of a function? I told you when I am explaining the features, first you have to write the object name, then dot member name. Here I am to take object dot A plus object dot B. Then close this function. Now is it clear? Whereas in this program, how many functions are there? One is get data function and one more is compute function. Whereas get data is a member function, whereas compute is a friend function. It is a non-member function, and but it can able to access the private data of a member function, that is A and B also it can able to access with the help of object.A plus object.B. Here this is get data function and this is compute function. Now how to write the main program? Void main, here create the object. How to create the object? The class name here we are given as addition object. Next, clear screen, CLRS here, clear screen. Now call get data function. It's a member function. How to call this function? To call this function, object dot get data function we are writing. It means that to call the function we required object dot get data function. Then how to call compute function? To call compute function we does not require any object at all. To access the data we required object name, but to call the function we does not require any object. While explaining the feature also I told you we does not require any scope resolution operator, but it can able to access the private data as well as protected data of a class. With that it violates the rule of encapsulation as well as data hiding. To call this compute function, cout insertion operator, the sum of two numbers equals. Call this function. How to call this function? Insertion operator directly. Whereas for other function how we are writing? Object name dot compute anta barita idu. Whereas here it is a non-member function. That's why directly I can call the function, that is compute inside the bracket object. Then get ch, close the main program which you opened. Now is it clear? Whereas from this what you come to know? Friend function is a non-member function. What are the features of this friend function? First feature is a non-member function, but it can able to access private protected data of a class. It does not require scope resolution operator. To To define the function outside the class, we does not require any scope resolution operator. While writing the syntax, compulsory we had to use the keyword friend, the next return type, then function name, inside the parenthesis, inside the bracket, you have to write the class name, then object name. Then if it is wants to access any data, then how to write? Object dot data member it has to write. To call the function, we does not require any object at all. Now is it clear? From this you come to know what do you mean by friend function? The features, then syntax as well as program. Once again I am to recall all the things, then it will be more clear for you. Friend function is a non-member function. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಆದ್ರೂ ಕೂಡ ಇದು ಪ್ರೈವೇಟ್ ಟು ಪ್ರೊಟೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಡೇಟಾಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಆಕ್ಸೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಥರ್ಡ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಯೂಸಿಂಗ್ ದ ಕೀವರ್ಡ್ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್. ಇದನ್ನ ಡಿಫೈನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಿದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ ಕೀವರ್ಡ್ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ ಅಂತ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಟು ಆಕ್ಸೆಸ್ ದ ಡೇಟಾ ಮೆಂಬರ್ಸ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಆಕ್ಸೆಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಅದ್ರ ಬದಲಾಗಿ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ನೇಮ್ ಡಾಟ್ ಡೇಟಾ ಮೆಂಬರ್ಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ರೈಟ್ to access the data members. To call the function, we does not require the object name. Whereas for regular function, how we are calling object dot get data. To call this friend function, we does not require object name dot compute function. Directly we can use compute function. It's a non-member function. And this is rare because it violates the rule of data encapsulation as well as data hiding. These are the things. Whereas on this chapter, majorly you have to study what do you mean by function overloading. Main thing, function overloading, definition, advantage, disadvantage and then program. Whereas in inline program also, definition, advantage, disadvantage and program. Whereas in friend function, the definition, the features of friend function, syntax as well as example program. These are the things you have to study on this chapter. Whereas it's very important chapter because for 5 marks, only one question they will ask in the annual exam. Once again I am to recall the questions. That is function overloading, definition, advantage, disadvantage as well as program. In the same way, in inline function also, same format, definition, advantage, disadvantage as well as program. In the same way, in friend function also, definition, you have to remember, then features of a friend function, then syntax as well as program. These are the things you have to study on this chapter. It's very important. If you study this concept, then 100% you will get 5 marks on your annual exam. Now is it clear for all of you? Once again to recall, addition is the class name, get data is a member function, compute is a friend function. To access the data members, object dot data members you have to write. While calling, we does not require object. Now is it clear for all of you? Next class we will meet with new chapter. Thank you for all of you.